You're listening to the Renegade Blitz, the best podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on RenegadeBlitz.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome back to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Polk with Chris Ward and Brandon Walker, a somber podcast here as we give our thoughts on the passing of Franco Harris at the age of 72, 3 days before his jersey is retired and before he's remembered for the great play that really probably started most of the world's fandom with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is the Immaculate Reception. Franco Harris, in terms of football, is the most important player, I'd like to say, and really the only one that rivals it is Mean Joe Green. But he's definitely the most important offensive player in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so many people have put in stories of meeting Franco Harris, or the impact he's had on there as a football player, but as a man. And I only have one thing really. I was an intern at WESA in November 2017. I had to go down to the Allegheny County Courthouse, and he was there with the county executive, Rich Fitzgerald, talking about the importance of signing up for the healthcare marketplace. And that was one of the many causes that he felt strong about around the area. And yeah, that's my story. There's nothing really fancy about it. I didn't get a chance to talk with him one-on-one, but you knew that with a lot of these things, he was a great man who cared about a lot of causes. Some of those things were as small as, maybe creating a food thing, the donut company that he knew that was all about nutrition for kids. Others were, of course, meeting him at the Western Pennsylvania Hall of Fame or something like that, or just seeing him out on the street. Brandon, because this is going to be really important for you, you're going to be down there at Acrisure Stadium with I think it's everyone was showing
Everybody's
up.
going to be there.
Everyone was going to be
everybody.
there. Now they're really going to be there.
Even some Raiders are going to be there.
This is effectively as close as a public wake as you can get. That's going to be nationally televised when you think about it. And Brandon, have you met Franco before?
I haven't met him. I saw him. A funny thing, it was maybe about 7 years ago. It was on. I was at my oil change at a Jiffy. It was either a Meineke or a Jiffy, whatever it was. He just showed up. He lived in near Swickley, that Emsworth area. Is it Edgeworth or Emsworth? Well, near Swickley, whatever it is. I just met him. He just sat down, chilled for about 20. I didn't go up and talk to him because I didn't think he was like that. I was like, all right, he might big time me or whatever. I might just sit here and chill. And he comes in here all the time and it's nothing. And he looked like a regular person. I'm like, I went up and said, is that Franco Harris there? I'm like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Because me personally, I'm not really in awe of too many people, athletes. The only athlete personally I probably was in awe of was Joe Green when I met him a couple of months ago. But his legacy through the Pittsburgh Steelers is second to none. I know Joe Green is the greater player, but he is the most, like you said, Ty, he's the most important player in Steelers history. Even because without that Immaculate Reception, who knows? Because it was like when Mel Blount went on Adidas Little Shindig, I was listening to it. We'll say Tuesday night. He was like, he basically was saying that he was that game said, yes, we can do it. He was like the driving force, even though that, because it was a run the ball type league back then. He said, we got a guy that can run the ball and be effective in the running game, and we play our defense, we win. And also, he was the MVP with Super Bowl 9. So Franco was the man throughout that dynasty more than anybody else on that offense. So that's when I say that he deserves to get his number retired before all else. He does. He really does. Except maybe Joe Green. And I'm going to give it to you, Chris, because I know. Have you met him? Have you heard?
I never got the chance to meet Franco Harris. I know my dad met him when he was a kid, so back in like the 70s. My dad met him at like a car dealership or something like that. But yeah, I mean, never got a chance to see him in person or meet him. But just from afar, I always admired Franco Harris. I always knew about the Immaculate Reception. Every Steelers fan or resident of Pittsburgh knows about the play. Young or old, it was just such an iconic play. And I really didn't learn till later of just how big Harris was to the Pittsburgh community. I know he was heavily involved with politics. I mean, President Biden and Barack Obama even expressed their condolences. I mean, that just shows how big of an icon Franco Harris was. It was just so much more than just football. You look at his he was in a biracial family. His dad was African American from Mississippi, and his mom was from Italy. They met in World War II. So it was just really, and the Franco's Italian army and everything, and how he brought so many different, cultures together. And you mentioned, Ty, about how he was a big proponent for, healthcare and everything. So he was just all around, a great guy. He was a man of the people. I just found out yesterday too that he was working on revitalizing the Crawford Grill in the Hill District. So it just shows, for the Hill District, an area that a lot of people have forgotten about. Harris is, multimillionaire, famous football player. He's going into the community, trying to revive the culture of the Hill District. So it was definitely something that I admire.
Yeah, and when you talk about with Franco Harris, he was the first African American as well as the first Italian American to win Super Bowl MVP. And there's a lot of people that you think of with Italian Americans in Pittsburgh history. The great Bruno Sammartino is another one, and there's so many other people that we could talk to about this. One guy that I think of, Claudio Rosano, he would be a great person in the future to talk about Italian America and Pittsburgh in general with sports. But that was one thing that I looked at right there and went, man, that's why he meant so much to people, because he touched both bases of America, not just as an African American, but also as an Italian American. As you mentioned, Franco's Italian army and so much. It's just, I still can't believe it, because he died 3 days before 50th anniversary of the biggest and most controversial play in NFL history. He was going to be celebrated, and there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that we talked about before this podcast that maybe we'll get into, maybe we won't get into, whatever it is. But if anything, I want for this Sunday to be a celebration of a legacy, not just a life, a legacy. That's the most important thing about this. This play is a part of his Saturday, of course.
Yeah,
Christmas night. Figuring, but yeah, you think about it so much, but I mean, when you play about it, because that play is a part of his legacy, and he's always, because you know how it is in Pittsburgh, we'll always talk about anything Steeler related at any time. That's how it is. And of course, they moved up his statue in front of the airport, which went from where passengers first get off the plane from Pittsburgh, it's now in the common area, which was a great thing by the Pittsburgh International Airport.
Yeah, you're right. And the thing is this. We talk about the person that, went to Penn State, went to start with the Immaculate Reception. Dude, the guy finished second all time in rushing. This is the rare occurrence where it's a moment outshines the player. How great he really was. Because when you talk about Michael Jordan, you talk about his greatness all around. You talk about the sick game. Sure, you talk about the final shot in Utah. All the amazing plays, the 55 points, like fresh out of his first retirement. And I don't think that's because honestly, I think he's an underrated running back of all time.
Yeah, I mean, you look at there were certain personalities for media that were saying that maybe there was more impactful Steelers that while they're happy for the moment that there probably should have been someone else. But I'm like, when you really take a look at the nuts and bolts of Franco Harris's career, he retired second. It was him and Walter Payton that was fighting for Jim Brown's record.
Right.
Now, we all know all about sweetness. I think that's the underrated fact about that even most Pittsburgh Steelers fans forget about. And of course, it's a what have you done for me lately thing. And I got into it with the last podcast of how I felt about the unfair treatment to maybe things that he did outside of the game of football, which in the grand scheme of things are a blip on the radar, and how that's affected most people's viewpoint here in Pittsburgh. You've heard the nickname before. I'm not even going to mention it. It's all hogwash beforehand, but now after that, it's especially hogwash.
Definitely.
Yeah. You mentioned Brandon about how he's underrated. There's a stat came out today with that. Franco Harris has the most career rushing yards in Super Bowl history with 354 yards. That's he has 17 touchdowns in 17 playoff games. I think he was a 9-time Pro Bowler. I think he had 6 first years, over 1,000 yards of rushing. So, during his era, he was one of the best. He was right up there with Jim Brown. He was going for the rushing record, like you mentioned, Ty. And I don't know how anybody could think there's so many great Steelers. Joe Green's obviously the best. He started the whole thing when he was drafted in 1969. But Bradshaw's great and everything. But Franco, he started with that Immaculate Reception play. The Steelers were a running team back then, so he was their guy as far as in the backfield.
And he could play in any era.
Yeah,
he could play today.
He was an underrated receiving back for the backfield.
Right. Yeah, he's 6'2", 230. And you were playing in the 70s. Could you imagine if he had the right nutrition plan and all the technologies that you have today? Bro, he'd be a problem.
He was big. If you look at his college and his high school highlights, he was he was bigger than everybody. He had that nice glide when he was running to a great stride and everything. Just a great. I think about that run in Super Bowl. Was it Super Bowl 13? Yeah, Super Bowl 13 when he ran up the middle and that was pretty much sealed the win for him. He was angry at Thomas Henderson because I think he did something that upset him. And then he got mad and just ran up the middle. I think it was on a trap play or something like that. But obviously I never seen him play. I was born in 1994, so it was long before after his career. But just watching highlights, I've watched old YouTube videos and everything. Great player to watch.
Yeah, and you talk about his retirement. Only left the team because of a pay dispute, and how many times, especially in the last 5 years with the Steelers, you've heard about that. So it's whatever when it comes to that. He retired 192 yards short of Jim Brown's record. When he retired after his 13 professional seasons, He was then third all time with 12,120 yards. On 949 carries, 4.1 yard rush, 1 yards per rush, which is great for a season, let alone a career. 4 yards a carry, especially in a run-heavy era like that, is amazing. Every defense was coming and they couldn't stop him.
How many touchdowns did he have? Because I can't get
how many touchdowns he had. 91 rushing touchdowns, and if you're wondering about receiving yards, 307 matches for 2,287 yards, 7.4 yards per reception. Incredible in that era. That wasn't a passing era, and he only had 9 receiving touchdowns. But as you said about him, if you put him in today's era, that's incredible. I'm pretty sure anyone would be up there, and obviously that touchdown mark would be up much higher.
Way much.
Yeah. So where I know we talked off air, but where were you guys when you heard the news? It came out really early in the morning.
All right, where was I? How did I hear it? I was driving to work, and I got a text from our editor, Chris, Mike Kukoven. Yeah. He was like, Franco Harris died. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I turned up. I was actually listening to Whammo on the radio, but I was like, all right. And then I immediately turned to the fan, and they were talking about it.
Yeah. I found out just on Twitter really early, and I was hoping it was fake, not real. Like I couldn't believe it because 2 days before the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, 3 days before his jersey number is going to get retired, I was like, this can't be real. Like there was videos that came out. He was just yesterday. I was at the Heinz History Center doing interviews and everything, and they haven't come out with how he passed away. But I guess it was just overnight when he was sleeping, I guess. But shocking news. I know I took an Uber to work, and my Uber driver was listening to on the radio. Numerous people at work were saying, "Did you hear about Franco Harris?" Not to me, just hearing people like around me. Like I was just hearing this like while I was walking through the hallway. So it's crazy just how big of a figure he was in Pittsburgh and everything. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Just like a athlete or like you could see maybe like a president or something like where people are like, all talking about it. Just shows how much he meant to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, my dad he wasn't crying, but he was like, he was very sad about this whole situation. And also, what was I going to say? Lost my train of thought. Yeah, it was just bad. Yeah, it's a sad day, and he's not only a legend here; he's a legend throughout the state.
Yeah, Penn State product. He loved Penn State. I know James Franklin came out with a statement, and Pat Fryermuth had a relationship with him.
But yeah, it's like another thing is this college coach's birthday today.
Yeah, it's Joe Paterno's birthday. Which I
wasn't trying to.
I was like, oh my goodness.
I was like, I was trying to say we got to tread lightly when we mention that name because that's a controversial name, especially around here. So I try to tread lightly when I say it. But it is Joe Paterno's birthday. Happy birthday to him, and rest in peace to him. So, and it was just it was just fate that this happened today.
I just, maybe. I mean, when you put it like that, it's. I mean, you could write a poem about it, write a book about it. You could write a movie. I mean, it's insane when I found out that because I mean, Franco meant a lot. I'm pretty sure Franco meant a lot to Joe Paterno, and obviously the other way around with that.
Yeah, they meant a lot to both each other.
It's insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
It's insane, and I'm not gonna sit in there and talk about anything that happened with that. I mean, however you feel about that, that's on you.
Yeah,
But
he was
when it comes,
right, we have us Penn State writers have a code of conduct. Remember that.
Yeah, I mean, say what you want
there's
about
a code of
the time-
conduct that I'm gonna follow with that. I'm not gonna mention another about another man. It's just that wow, this happened on the same day. Look at that.
Yeah, that's
But
what I'm
when it
saying.
comes-
That's
when
what
it-
we're trying to get. I was trying to just get that,
Yeah, I mean, say what you want
He's
about
trying to do
paternal-
all that. Like he's just saying his college is like, yep. But then again, how do you feel about people who think like how people felt about getting his jersey retired? Because there's some talking heads that are jerks that just who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Mentioning this stuff, like, and then like
During the week of when he's going to get honored, they're mentioning.
right, you know he's going to get honored. He's like he's not deserving more than other. Yes, he is. Shut the hell up! I'm getting tired of like certain journalists who this is the Yinzer type stuff I'm talking about. Ty and Chris, like they got these Yinzers that go on these platforms and just run their mouths and just say whatever the hell they want to, and they ain't got no consequences. You're lucky.
I just want
like, it is tough guy Yinzer. What's going on? Yeah.
all right. I think people have already caught on to the drift with that, but I wanted to talk about how I found out about it just shortly. I seen a tweet that Chris sent that mentions one of those media personalities. I noticed that it vanished in thin air, and I looked around Twitter because I woke up at 6 this morning, so I'm the late riser of the group apparently somehow. But yeah, that's how I found out. I did more digging, seeing why is Franco Harris trending, and I understand that it's his big moment. And then I seen the tweets and jaw dropped. Just could not believe it, especially with the timing of the situation. My only wish is that he would have gotten to see this stuff much earlier. That he could have gotten his flowers in front of people, and the fact that it happened so close to him finally getting that, even though he, of course, many times beforehand got those flowers around him. I just wanted that proper moment for him.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring, mention that about the flowers, because Tomlin actually mentioned that the same kind of saying today. He said, I'm an advocate of giving people their flowers while they're here. So I thought that's a pretty powerful statement, I think, by Tomlin. Because you never, like, no one had expected, there was no signs of health issues or anything, but it just really puts a lot of things in perspective about how, like, you really have to enjoy every day because, you never know what can happen and stuff. Just, like, enjoy it. I know for myself, like, there's days where I feel down or whatever, but you have to get in the right mindset and say, like, you're just grateful to be alive, really. But it just really is put things in perspective is kind of like the way I see it.
Yeah, most definitely. You just
another thing, know. Brandon, of course, this also means a lot to you because one thing about it with Penn State, today's signing day, and so many new faces for Penn State because you cover it as well. They'll never get that opportunity to meet him face to face and say I'm a Penn State man as well, and that's just sad. That's just sad for them. I mean, it's an all around just sad situation.
Yeah, I know. Is this like on signing day? You want to talk about, because I put it in the press conference, the James Franco's press conference. I know we're a Steelers podcast, but whatever, who cares? He talked about, they want to talk about the future, but you got to go to the past to go to forge your future. You know what I mean? He could have been he was a pillar also at Penn State. He loved Penn State to the day he died as well. As much as you think he's a Steeler guy and he's one of the ultimate Penn State guys too.
Oh yeah, he definitely he loves
He's the nitniest of the nitney.
Yeah, he was a very loyal
Nitty man.
about Paterno and stuff, and say what you want about Paterno, but like I mean, he was kind of like a father figure to Franco Harris. I mean, they're both Joe Paterno's Italian too. Franco Harris is half Italian. They had a really special bond, and I think that's why he was so loyal to the school.
Yes, like
as we wrap up this podcast, of course, now coming into it, it's the Steelers versus the Las Vegas Raiders, not the Oakland Raiders, but still, it's the Raiders regardless. And of course, it was already going to be an emotional game. It's now infinity from what it was. It was 500,000 of emotions. It's now you can't calculate it anymore. What are you expecting from, I guess, the Steelers? Because it's a lot of good things that are coming out of this. I mean, I guess as much as he's saying they're going to honor him, the Steelers are even painting their end zones for the first time since 2004.
Yeah, probably.
Yes, I mean, yeah, really like that.
The Steelers
it's
are going
to be emotionally charged.
Oh, the Steelers are going to dog walk them. This is going to be the first time in about
anything less.
Huh? Nah, because this is going to be the first time.
I think anything less.
Yeah, like this is going to be the first time you'll forget this year. You'll forget that they're 6-18. Trust and believe it's going to be it. Steelers going to whip that tail.
Yeah, definitely should be a electric night. They still plan on retiring the jersey and everything. I don't know what the entire plans are, but definitely it's going to be an
they'll retire it.
Yeah, they're going to retire, but like as far as like they had some other plans. Like I don't know if they're going to do that. Like having the radio on Friday when the 50th anniversary occurs. I think I read like 3:31.
Oh, they're going to have that. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Don't worry. They're going to have that going. They got to have it going. We might even see we might potentially see on one of the Pittsburgh stations a full replaying of the game potentially. Not the major ones, of course, but I would expect Pittsburgh CW somewhere to do it. I mean, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, but I was like with the whole, the news of Franco Harris passing. Like, I haven't really thought about the matchups of the game really that much since Tuesday. I haven't really thought about. I know Kenny Pickett's expected to start. He practiced today and everything. Right. The Pro Bowl news just came out. I guess T.J. Watt and Micah Fitzpatrick were the representatives for the Steelers. What do you guys think about it? I don't know if you guys saw that yet.
How?
I mean,
like Minka, yes, but TJ has.
They should have put
That's his vote.
Highsmith should have went in. He has 11 sacks, I think. So, yeah, I raised my obviously TJ Watt's a great player, but he's been hurt for most of the year.
This is what happens when you have fans be a part of the voting. And honestly, the Pro Bowl voting, it's now basically a skills competition. So what does that really mean in the long term now? It's kind of just a fan's choice award, for lack of a better term now.
Yeah, it's all about all pros, not Pro Bowls.
TJ Watt's not an all-pro, but the fans will believe until the end of the day. Anything that a fan can vote, you have to take with a grain of salt, basically.
Like people like us
vote for that.
Like people like us vote for all pros.
Well, let's stop the cart before the horse, right, Jess? But that'd be a great thing.
I said people like media personalities and coaches like that. But
yeah, I mean they don't even play the Pro Bowl, and it's like a flag. It's like, was it like a flag thing now or something like that?
No, it's not. I don't even know.
I mean, if it could be like the old Pro Bowl skills competition, it's going to be the Pro Bowl skills competition. They brought. Hopefully, if it's like the mid-2000s version or the quarterback club or whatever else, that I would pay a ton of money to see. But
yeah, it's like
it's
what
not
was
really
the last special Pro Bowl moment when Sean Taylor hit that punter?
Yeah, I would say so.
Whenever it used to have everyone after the Super Bowl, that was when it started being the week before. I think that's where it lost its last luster. It was lusterless before that, but that's where it was like, yeah, this doesn't really matter. It was like this is your last moment to see your favorites before you don't see them for another 5 months.
What ruined it was the players, their contracts, and the NFLPA, and everything. Like it used to be a lot more entertaining. Like I remember Casey Hampton would be on the bench press competition or something, or like they had different receiver challenges or kicker challenges. The fastest player in the NFL, so it was a lot more entertaining back than the 2000s.
Daryl Green used to be a part of those still,
like winning regularly.
So I remember
like that. Bro, like I think he almost beat Amon Green. Remember him? Like in his prime, Amon Green.
I remember
and this is after he retired. So
they need something. They need something like that, but I don't know if any retired players are like that. Maybe Tyreek Hill, whenever he retires, will do that, but who knows?
Yeah.
Regardless, I think everyone will say Steelers by a lot. Whatever that number is, you make that determination. But at least emotionally, that's how a lot of people feel. I think fans, journalists, a lot. There's going to be a lot of people that'll root for the Steelers on Saturday night, Christmas Eve, taking on the Raiders in prime time. We'll talk to you after this game. Might do a special Spaces. Might do another StreamYard show. We'll find out then, but we'll always remember Franco Harris and the great things he did for the city of Pittsburgh, the state of Pennsylvania, but more importantly, as a Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, Franco Harris gone at the age of 72. Rest in peace to Franco Harris. Condolences to all of his family members, all of the Steelers teammates that he's had, the people that he's touched in many other ways, and of course to the Penn State alumni and all affected by this. And then for Chris Ward and Brandon Walker, I'm Ty Polk. Thank you for tuning in to this special episode of the Renegade Blitz.
Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at @RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on renegadeblitz.com. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. The Renegade Blitz podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you can listen to podcasts.